You know, I think the craziest thing about all of this is the fact that this was a completely positive fandom interaction. Those do not happen very often. Hey, it's Ali. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. What a whirlwind of a few weeks, 12 days it's been on Twitter, specifically Trigun Stan Twitter. Where do I even begin? Well, I guess on Twitter. In the last week and a half, you may or may have not seen this lovely book right here. This is How to Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. This book has gone completely viral thanks to one Trigun Stan Twitter user named Bigolas Dickolas. So this tweet, them recommending this book, came onto my timeline pretty early in its virality, specifically because, you know, I'm on Trigun Stan Twitter, and so that stuff usually starts to circulate. And if you couldn't tell by their profile picture, by their header, and by their name, they are most definitely a Trigun Stan account. So when I saw this tweet, I was like, I don't get the context. I did not understand the context at all. Was this person just randomly, suggesting this book, or was there something deeper? And one look at their account, you'll know. They ship Vashwood, which, if you don't know, is one of the biggest ship in Trigun, between Vash, the main character, and Wolfwood. And so after realizing that, my brain immediately went to, they read this book. This was a regular book. It's not fan fiction or anything. It's a regular book. They read it, they liked it, and it reminded them of Vashwood. And now here we are, which I can completely understand, because I myself am also infected with the virus known as Vashwood and also Mashwood, but this isn't what this is about today. But what I am here to talk about today is this historic fandom moment that will go down as probably one of the only positive fandom interactions ever to exist in the fandom history wiki. And then also a review on the book, because duh, I read it. Do you see this? I read this. I read it, and we will be talking about it today. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, because I make videos like this all the time. And let's start a book club down below. This is my third video where I talk about books. I don't know what's been going on lately, but let's start a book club down below. If you heard about this book before all this happened and you really like this book, because this book came out 4 years ago. So if you heard about this book beforehand, let me know. If you heard about this book because of Bigolas Dickolas, let me know. Are you into Trigun? Are you not into Trigun? Are you into Trigun now that you've read this book? Are you into this book because of Trigun? Let me know down below, and let's jump into it. So I laugh and like the tweet because it's funny. It's like, haha, this person sees Vashwood and everything, how funny. And then I just let it go. I like the tweet and I move on. I don't really interact further with it. I don't plan on reading the book because, well, this is my entire to read list. So I just was like, cute. Even though it was only 200 pages, I was like, it's cute. I'm also broke as hell, and etc. Excuses, I know. But then I see the tweet again about a couple days later, and this time it's jumped from 25k likes to 50k likes. And then a couple days later, I see the tweet again. And this time, the person who tweeted it is also talking about doing interviews. The authors have found out about all of this going on. And even one of the producers on the Trigun show has found out about it. Now, by this point, the tweet has breached containment. And if you don't know what that means, pretty much on Stan Twitter, or honestly anywhere really where anybody makes a post on any social media, when a post breaches containment, that basically means that it has gone outside of its intended audience. Usually this happens when something goes viral, especially within the Stan Twitter space. When something goes viral and normies, quote unquote, start to see it, it can usually have pretty negative effects, which is why it's called breaching containment, because it's we're in our own little bubble over here, and someone else seeing it that's not a part of that bubble usually opens it up to a lot of ignorance and a lot of criticism. But like I said before, and I will keep saying it, this was only a positive interaction. Only positive. As a person who has been around the block a couple of times with negative fandom interactions with other people, let me tell you. I think Bigolas Dickolas even said at some point that we all needed to be on our best behavior, because they know, we know, and if you watch anime or you're in part of any fandom, you know how crazy things can get as soon as anybody outside of the fandom gets involved. And we were on our best behavior because we're also just very gay. Happy Pride, by the way. This is coming up before Pride, but you know what I mean. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'll read the book. My friend, who also wanted to read the book because we also have Trigun brain rot, she found out that the book was sold out at our public library. Sold out, and then wait time was 2 weeks long. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna order it off of Amazon. It was on sale. because apparently Amazon does that to boost sales, but it doesn't hurt the royalties given to the authors, which is, I learned something new today. Who would have thought? It's on number 3 trending bestseller. As of recording this, it is number 3 trending bestseller on Amazon. And then also it has shot up to New York Times bestseller list. Can you imagine for a second being the authors of this book and you're like, you know what, this book was pretty already pretty well known within the space that it was in. This is a sapphic sci-fi romance novel, so it won a Nebula Award. This was all 4 years ago the book came out, so now here we are a whole 4 years later, and your book is having this second life, something that you probably never thought was gonna happen. And you open up Twitter, an anime stan Twitter user named Bigolas Dickolas is the reason why your book has gotten second life. What a crazy world we live in. So now the authors have taken notice, but it doesn't end there. Because you know who else takes notice? Like I said, a producer of the show takes notice and decides they're going to read the book. I don't know if we ever got any reaction, any review from this person reading the book, but that's kind of insane. And let me tell you why it's insane. As a person who has been around the block, like I said, with anime and ships and this, that, the third, I don't ever go into a show expecting a ship to be canon. Personally, for me, I just do it for fun. It's just for funsies. So for a person who usually producers and the production and everything, they usually not ignore their fandom, but ignore certain parts of the fandom. Especially with anime, it could be so crazy sometimes. We've been pretty good here. We've been pretty good. Well, anyway, but this interaction, being wholly positive, and a lot of people who are involved with Trigun's production, not feeding into it, but saying, hey, we notice you, we see you, we know that you exist, and we're playing into it. We're having fun here. It's all fun. We're having fun here. That means a lot. I don't know about y'all, but that just means a lot to me. But then Dark Horse Comics comes into the play. And Dark Horse Comics, if you don't know, are the ones in charge of the Trigun reprint. A Trigun is getting reprinted, and not only that, but we are getting a hardcover deluxe version. Have you seen those Berserk hardcovers? Oh, you see? We're getting that for Trigun. Oh, now obviously, this probably was not caused by Bigolas Dickolas, though I think the announcement of it was riding the coattails of all of this virality and this new resurgence post-Stampede talking about Trigun, because it's been pretty, not low-key, the fandom is still going strong, but it's in terms of it being in the cultural zeitgeist, it's been about a month or so since Trigun Stampede ended, so it's getting kind of quieted down on that front, unless you have terminal brain rot like I do and you're just always looking at Trigun every second of every single day. But for the most part, it's been quieted down. So I think this viral thing happening, I think as a social media move, it's nice to be oh, we gotta ride the coattails of this. Not saying that they're oh, we don't know what's going on. They know what's going on. They know what's going on. This is what happens when you get a bunch of late millennials and early Gen Z a hold of your social media accounts. This is what happens. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing. I love it. I love it so much. I think Coley said it best when she said that you cannot reproduce this in a factory. This is something that happens wholly naturally. And when you have people who understand the internet, I'm sorry, but when you have people who understand the internet, a part of these social media teams, they are able to naturally insert themselves in and generate even more hype for this, which is exactly what happened. Who knows when they were originally going to announce the Trigun hardcover, but here we are. But anyway, let's talk about this book now. I've been putting it off. Let's talk about this book. As you can see, I very much so annotated this book. This is my first time ever annotating a book since high school, so I felt such a book talk girly when I did this. I had so much fun with this book. This book is so lovely. This is your final warning for spoilers for both Trigun Stampede, and then this. I have not read the manga, so no manga spoilers unless I correctly guess something. But overall, there will be spoilers. So this is your last warning. Go read this. Go pick up this book. It's $8 on Amazon. Go pick up this book right now. It's $14 if you want to do the audiobook. Go pick it up. Go do it right now. Go do it. Okay, let's get into it. So as I said earlier, this book is a sapphic sci-fi romance between two opposing women, Red and Blue. Already we got to pause. Red and Blue. Did they know what they were doing there? I feel like this book was made for people inside of a fandom. Because come on now. This book was literally made to be in a fandom's hands. Red and Blue? Red and Blue time travel, enemies to lovers. Like, y'all, I've said it before, but I am not usually an enemies to lovers stan. This book, however, might have made a stand out of me. If this is the enemies to lovers y'all have been talking about, y'all might have gotten a stand out of me. You might have. So basically, the whole premise of the book is that these two opposing sides, both the Garden, which is Blue's team, and the Commandment, which is Red team, which if you couldn't tell, Red is like a robot, and Blue is like this organic material matter thing. Do you see the connection here, or am I going insane? Anyway, the whole book is just a series of letters. Well, not all of it. It's like a little bit of narrative and then a series of letters that they send to each other. And it starts off as them just boasting to each other about having bested each other because they are the best of their ranks. And so they often go on solo missions throughout time. So honestly, if you liked Everything Everywhere All at Once, I know people like to say this, but genuinely, if you liked Everything Everywhere All at Once, you might actually really like this book. If you like the idea of like the multiverse and shit like that, I know it's so like cliche to say at this point, but this honestly, didn't this book come out in 2019? So it came out before Everything Everywhere All at Once. But anyway, this book though talks a lot about different timelines and different events and stopping and starting things, preventing things from happening, making sure that certain things happen. And there's a lot of that throughout this book. And so I feel like if you liked Everything Everywhere All at Once, but you want, like, think of that, but like romance. Well, I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once had romance, but like gay romance. that's this book. Like, that's this book, bro. I think you would genuinely enjoy it. It's less absurdity. This book is also very poetic. It's only 200 pages, but it took me 2 days to read because not only am I a slow reader, I also, if you've seen my bookshelf up there, it's mostly young adult, like, novels. This is my first, like, big girl novel. Let me tell you something. So it took a little bit. It took a little bit for me to get through, and that's also why I annotated it, because I really genuinely wanted to, like, thoroughly understand it. It's really different from, like, any other book I've ever read, especially how poetic it is in its nature. I really wanted to, like, deeply understand everything. So I annotated based off of colors and based off of how the things made me feel. So green is like when I had to stop and like think about something or reread it, which, like, it's mostly green in here. There's also blue, which is stuff that made me sad. Pink, which has to do with their relationship, where I feel like there were important turning points in their relationship. And orange, which is just like very important narrative parts. So I think something that was very important in this book, especially with all the metaphors and the flowery language, is the fact that Red is a robot soldier, and it is talked about multiple times, her contorting herself, both her and Blue contorting themselves into something that doesn't look human or something that isn't human or whatever. In fact, on page like 2, I think she mentions how, like, folding back into herself and the her weapons folding back into herself and resembling something akin to being a woman. That's what the line said in the book. And I thought that was very interesting for this book in particular, because I feel like there's a lot, the dichotomy between Red and Blue, a lot of like how they were brought up, and not necessarily what side is right, because at the end of the day, the war is definitely a backdrop to their relationship. Okay, like it's important, but only for the sake of like them's two's relationship. It's not like, oh, why is the war being fought in the first place? You never really get an answer to it, and you don't really need a reason. Do you need a reason? Like, a war is being fought, like, and it probably will never end. They mentioned that it probably will never end because it's a time war. So with Red, you see a lot of this feeling of, for her, it's like loneliness and wanting to explore her and herself. Like, she does not need to eat, she does not need to use her organs, she does not need to sleep, and yet she craves doing those things anyway. All of her, like, subordinates can do that same thing. They can eat, they can sleep, they can use their organs if they want to, but they don't necessarily have to. And so there is that innate curiosity there, but for her it's more strong. For her it's more like deviant, I guess. And so that is also something that comes up a lot in this book, is how she is so different from the rest of her peers. And what does that mean? I think personally it means that they're just more human. But if we're gonna relate this to Vashwood, And in this case, Wolfwood is Red and Blue is Vash. Wolfwood, was experimented on as a child, and because of that, got a lot of his childhood stripped away from him, and he had to grow up very fast. So there are a lot of things that he just you could go deep with this. All right, there are a lot of things that Vash just doesn't get to have the experience of, and you could argue those being like eating, sleeping, any of that. Vash gets Vash. Have I been saying Vash this whole time? I meant Wolfwood. Sorry, Wolfwood. Like Red in the story, there's a lot of black and white feeling and a lot of black and white looking. In terms of Red, she was obviously brought up to be if it is inefficient and if it is not needed, it does not need to be here. And Blue in turn kind of is asking her specifically about her hunger, and does she ever have this hunger inside of her? And Red thinks at first she's talking about actual physical hunger, but it's actually no. She elaborates that actually she means hunger, desire, longing, things like that. And she says that she has had that since she was little, because she got sick when she was little. It's what caused this hunger to be so strong inside of her, and it's never really settled down too much. One of the discussion questions, yes, there are discussion questions at the end of this book. I wish I was able to read this book in high school or even college. I wish. But one of the discussion questions asked, when do you think Red and Blue started to fall for each other? And personally for me, I think I marked it so early on. But yes, on page 8. So I marked, "This is how we'll win," which is a line I think said by Blue in this instance. Which is funny because that's how the book ends, with that line, "This is how we'll win." And I knew in the beginning that it was such an important line. Look at me. I'm so smart. I felt so big-brained through a lot of this book. We'll get to that. But yeah, a lot of the turning points in their relationship, at least for me, is how they start to become very casual with each other. Of course, their correspondence starts out very formal, very haha, I'm teasing you, whatever. But then as soon as Red or Blue starts calling them by their nicknames, or giving them nicknames rather, that's when I was oh, it's over. It's over for y'all. It's over for y'all. And you know who else started to give somebody nicknames? Wolfwood. So the whole book is them just kind of going back and forth, and these moments in time, or I guess rather in spite of time, them falling in love with each other. It's they have this Invisible String by Taylor Swift thing going on, which you could argue, and I have argued, has a lot to do with Vashwood, because specifically Wolfwood and Vash have a very intertwined backstory, especially with Wolfwood's creation. It's so intertwined with Vash at this point that it's platonic soulmates exist. You may not be oh, they're not romantic, and that's fine, but platonic soulmates still exist. So they are still soulmates in my eyes. And my favorite scene in the book is actually when Blue decides to save Red by killing a creature that was grown specifically to kill Red. And I feel that obviously was a very pivotal moment in the okay, I've gone off the deep end now. At this point, there is no turning back. I have decided to become a full-blown, I guess, quote-unquote, traitor in this work. And that it definitely also reflects upon Wolfwood and Vash, though. In this case, Wolfwood would be Blue in this case, because there were so many times where Wolfwood could have just killed Vash, both in the original Trigun anime and in Trigun Stampede, and I'm sure in the manga as well. There were just so many times he could have just done it. He wasn't supposed to kill him. He was supposed to bring him back. But there were so many times that could have happened, and at some point Wolfwood just goes, no, I'm good at this point. And so when you get to the end of the series, at least in the original anime, it is this whole big swelling moment of this betrayal, quote unquote, even though you could argue that Vash knew the whole time, which is exactly what happens in this book in terms of there is a betrayal towards the end. However, both characters at this point are just I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I just want to be with you. I just want to be. Oh God, it was so good. Oh my God. I never thought I'd be a person for flowery poetic language, but the way they just started speaking to each other, I was nah. And it also made all the moments where they kind of broke character and spoke really plainly hit so much harder. Oh my God. But yes, one of the discussion questions I think again is the entire ending is a question of whether or not Blue knew this whole time. So this is the ultimate spoiler of the book. So if you're up to this point, thanks for watching. But basically what happens is Blue gets poisoned indirectly by Red. Red doesn't want to do it, but her commandment makes her. And in her grief, Red goes about London in this dilapidated version of London, riding the subway over and over and over again. And she sees a painting that looks the exact way that Blue dies. And she goes, wait a minute. Did Blue have this planned out all along? And she's like, or am I just delusional? Which is like, me too, girly. Sometimes you gotta be delusional. If this book has taught me anything, sometimes you gotta be delusional. But she's like, maybe I need to like go back in time. And if I go back in time and poison Blue when she's a child and make her sick, remember the sickness that she said happened? Then she will be adverse to this poison and it will not kill her. And so that is like her grandstanding plan. And I felt so smart because I guessed it at the beginning of the book. Because when Blue mentioned that she was sick as a child, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if Red went back in time and poisoned Blue? But I was like, I didn't have a motive, but I just thought it in my head. I was like, I feel like, especially the cyclical nature of a lot of the things that happen in this book and time and stuff like that, in my head, I was like, it'd be crazy if Red was the one to have done that. But I didn't have a motive of the reason why Red would ever do that in my head, but I was right. And that's all that matters. And also, Red being the shadow the whole time, I also guessed too, because the way that the shadow interacts with Red versus the way the shadow interacts with Blue, like Red knew about the shadow the whole time, but Blue was like, there is no shadow, which is also why it's like a theory of like, did Blue know the whole time? Because there's no way Blue didn't know that there was a shadow there, right? There's no way that she didn't know there was someone following her this entire time. And so maybe she in some way knew about the sickness. She knew about like Red following her and knew about that there was all this grandstanding plan and to just trust the process. And at the end, another discussion question in the book was like, why does Blue sound so like upset in her last correspondence about being betrayed? And one of the answers just plainly is that Blue might have been being listened to by the garden, and so she wanted to make it seem like, oh my god, I can't believe you betrayed me. But also at the same time, I think it was to also push Red over that edge of actually doing the thing that she needs to do, because if she was just like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, would Red do all the things and go back in time and do all that crazy stuff? No, I don't think she would have. So I think that's probably the reason why, if Blue knew the whole time, which I do think she did, she never said anything. I got the mind of a master. I felt so smart when I found all that out. I felt so smart. Everybody give props to me. Everybody go into the comments and tell me how smart I am. Or how dumb I am, because I could be getting this all completely wrong, but this is just the way I interpreted the book. But of course, as we relate this to Vashwood, there is very strong evidence to suggest that Vash knew the entire time that Wolfwood was a spy and was there to take Vash back. But I think because Vash just has such a big heart and believes so much in people, that he was just like, you know what? I'm gonna give you this chance to like prove yourself. And even at the end of the original Trigun anime, he's like, hey, just don't do it. Just don't. You've had such a great streak up until this time. Just don't fucking do it. You can still be forgiven. You can still all of this other stuff. And of course, by then it's like too late for Wolfwood in his own mind. But it's really interesting to imagine that Vash knew the entire time. Also, someone mentioned on Twitter earlier today, right before I started filming, someone mentioned that like one of the creators had said that Vash doesn't get close to women because he does not want to fall in love with them, obviously, because he lives so much longer than like a regular human person. But but then someone quote retweeted that and then finished the sentence, but it's like, but no one ever said he couldn't fall in love with a man. But I think the actual thing is there with Vashwood, in terms of canon, is the fact that like he still got very close to Wolfwood, even though I love Meryl and Vash. But the thought of Meryl growing old and Vash anyway. But we'll talk about Vashwood. But with that, it's very much the nature of it. But he still got very close to Wolfwood. He's supposedly not supposed to be getting close to anybody, Vash, because of the fact that he lives so much longer than everybody else. But he just immediately gets close to Wolfwood. Coincidence? It really makes you ponder and cry. I did cry while reading this book, yes. And that's the book. I kept it really vague and skipped over a lot of stuff because I really want you to read this book. I really want you to read this book. If you have read the book, let me know your favorite like quotes down below, because I've never been that girly. I think I highlighted one. Hold on, let me see if I can find the one that I highlighted. I never highlight my books, but I'm gonna read this to you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I'll write it in the waves, in skies, in my heart. You'll never see, but you will know. I'll be all the poets, I'll kill them all, and take each one's place in turn. And every time love's written in all the strands, it will be to you. Yeah, that was Blue to Red. It really makes you ponder and cry. I did cry during that moment. That was oof. Let me know your favorite quotes of the book down below. I know I said this a lot in this video, but I was so pleasantly surprised when this whole thing was just such a positive interaction, which is the main reason why I wanted to make this video. Obviously to highlight this book and how great it is, but also to just talk about how positive of fandom interaction this is, and how I know positive fandom interactions do happen, but they are so few and far between. Like, if you were to look up fandom history on YouTube or on TikTok or anything, you're gonna get like overwhelmingly negative stories, which some of them are hilarious and some of them are just downright degenerate and awful. So to have something that was such a positive moment, I really wanted to like highlight it. I wasn't gonna make a video about this, and then it just kept going. Good things just kept happening, and I was like, you know what, I want to highlight something great today. It's almost Pride Month. By the time this comes out, I think it'll be the last Saturday in May. So happy future Pride Month. If you're watching this in Pride Month, or just in the future in general, or in the past. The fact that like all of this happened over the span of 12 days, and it's still going, like to this day, like there's still stuff still going. Bigolas Dickolas has become somewhat of a influencer, but not in like a cringy bad way. They're living my dream and getting free stuff, free Trigun branded stuff. They're living my dream, please. Like, I wish I was you right now. If Bigolas Dickolas is watching this, hi, hello. You're doing the Lord's work out there. I also have like 0 Trigun merch, and it's a damn shame. Mostly because I am poor, because I see beautiful artists all day, every day, making wonderful Trigun art, but I'm just so poor right now. But I had $8 to chill out. This is like my unofficial Trigun merch is this book. But if you guys know of any Zines, like seriously though, like let me know. This whole row down here is like mostly Zines or zines, whatever the fuck, and that's where I get like most of the merch up here as well. All of that is zines. So if you know any Trigun, please send it to me. Please send it to me now. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. If you did, you are a real one. Let's start a conversation down below about this and any other positive fandom moments that you've had. If you're not in the Trigun fandom, you are genuinely missing out. We just like to have fun over here. Genuinely. Trigun is still rotting my brain. I actually wanted to make another Trigun video, but I had no idea what it's going to be about. I thought it was going to be about reading the manga, but I don't know if y'all still want me to do that. I might just read it on my own and then maybe come back with a video in a later time, or I might wait until December when the book comes out and then do like a review of that. I won't wait to read the manga until December, but in terms of making a video about it, I might wait until December to do that. That's very far though. And the Trigun brain rot is very heavy. So we'll see if that happens. But I really wanted to make another video about Trigun, and here we are. But yes, you can check me out on all of my social medias down below. On Instagram, I post fan art sometimes. I've been drawing a lot of Trigun, so hopefully I will be posting that soon. Tumblr, also I post fan art there as well, and also just scream into the void and read fan fiction and stuff. Also Twitter, I just retweet most stuff on Twitter, and TikTok and YouTube, I guess shorts, where I make stuff sometimes. So you can come follow me. Let's start a conversation, and I'll see you in the next episode. Love and peace.